Thank you for listening to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. This is Real Sports Talk for the Real Sports fan. And I definitely appreciate all you Real Sports fans who are listening right now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please do me a huge favor. Go to the ratings and review page and leave this podcast a 5-star rating. That 1, 2, 3, 4, that 5-star rating review will definitely be appreciated. If you're listening on any other platform, Spotify, Audible, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this podcast, please share it from that platform and let the people know why you're listening to this podcast and tell them to listen to it. All right. I would appreciate the support so much. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, leave me a comment, subscribe, share it with your friends. I definitely would appreciate it. And today's episode is brought to you by fantasydata.com. All right. So if you're into fantasy sports, basketball, baseball, football, you can even do MMA now. Go to fantasydata.com. You'll get the edge up on all your fantasy needs. And you get 25% off if you use my promo code REAL411. So go to fantasydata.com, use promo code REAL411 and get 25% off. All right. Very excited about today's episode. I do apologize. It's coming a couple of days late. I'm coming to you on Tuesday morning, the 23rd. And I will make up for the tardiness by bringing you another dope episode, I promise. And we have a lot to get into. So you think about all the news going on in the NBA. DeShawn Watson, got to get into that. We had a lot of boxing this past weekend. It was a huge weekend in boxing. And of course, we had the second installment of Man Shut Up or Man Talk Your Ish. All right. And of course, we're going to end with Forgotten Player. So let's get into today's episode. So first, let's get into the real deal headlines. And LeBron James, first headline, not the biggest story in all of sports, but definitely the biggest story in the NBA is that LeBron James is out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain. I saw the play, didn't look good. They were playing against the Hawks. I believe it was, I want to say Solomon Hill, who went down diving for a ball, rolled up on LeBron's ankle. He was writhing in pain, definitely a lot of pain. And LeBron getting hurt is shocking, right? Him getting hurt is on the same level with Floyd Mayweather actually getting punched hard. You know how when people talk about Floyd Mayweather, they remember the times he got hit hard? Oh, you remember the time he got hit by Shane Mosley? Remember that time Zab Judah got him that one time? That's how it is with LeBron James getting hurt. Like, dang, you remember the one time he hurt his groin? Dang, you remember that one high ankle sprain? Remember that time he hurt his back in Miami? He was out for like 2 weeks. Like, that's how it is. And it's very shocking to see. And with a high ankle sprain, usually you're out 4 to 6 weeks. Like, it's that serious. Now, with LeBron, he's not your normal human being. So he may be back sooner than that, right? But looking at the Lakers' schedule, how far will they fall in the standings while LeBron is out? Now, remember, Anthony Davis isn't back yet. So they're going to be without their 2 stars, right? As I pull up their schedule here, or the standings at least, and I'm looking at their schedule, they've already lost to the Suns, right? Without LeBron James. They got the Pelicans tonight, then the 76ers, right? So I think they're going to lose 3 straight out the gate, right? Now, the Pelicans, you never know which New Orleans Pelicans team is going to show up. Is it going to be the team that loses to the Minnesota Timberwolves by 30? Or is it going to be the team that can show up and beat the Clippers by 20? You never know what Pelicans team is going to show up. So it could go either way, but I'm going to say they're going to lose to the Pelicans tonight. 76ers, even without Embiid, I don't see them beating the 76ers. Then after that, they have the Cavaliers. They could get a win there, right? Cavaliers haven't been consistent at all. The Magic, all they have is Vucevic. I can see them winning that game. Milwaukee, that's a loss. Sacramento, I can see them winning that game. Then they play against the Clippers. Not winning that without LeBron and AD. Maybe back by that point. We don't know. He's being reevaluated sometime this week, is what I heard. The Raptors, I can see them winning that game. The Miami Heat, that's a loss. Brooklyn Nets, right? Kevin Durant could be back by that point. That's definitely a loss. Even if he's not back, the way James Harden's been playing, that's a loss. The Knicks, that's a hard team to play against, especially without your two stars. Very good defense. That's a loss. Charlotte, that's going to be tough because Charlotte no longer has LaMelo Ball, which we'll get into. But Charlotte's still a good team. I think they'll lose that game. Boston, another very inconsistent team, but without one or two of your stars, I think they lose. Then they play the Jazz back to back. That's losses. Then they play the Mavs. And that game is on April 22nd, I believe. So that will make a full month, right? Now, again, LeBron's not human. He could be back before then. But if you're looking at just giving it a month time frame, during that month, they can go 1, 2, 3. So if they don't have both Anthony Davis and LeBron, I can see them going 3. Let me count these L's out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I can see them going 3 and 13. Like, it could get really bad here. And if they go 3 and 13, where will they fall in the standings? Right? Because I think a lot of people are just like, they'll be okay. Right? But when you look at the West right now, they are 28 and 15, and they are just one game in the loss column ahead of the Clippers in the 4th spot. You have the Nuggets right there, only 2 games behind in the loss column. The Trailblazers with the same record. They can find themselves out of the top 8. Now, this year is different because you have the play-in games. They added those because it's a shortened season. So as long as you get in the top 10, you can make the playoffs. But if you're through that 7 through 10 range, then you have to play the play-in games, which puts you in danger of missing the playoffs altogether. So this could be a very dangerous time. Now, of course, you don't want to rush Anthony Davis back, but you need him. You need him right now. And I understand you're going to be cautious because you want to make sure that he's healthy going into the playoffs. But damn it, you got to make the playoffs. And right now, they can find themselves on the outside looking in. Like the Grizzlies right now at the 10th spot are 20 and 20, right? Which is 5 in the loss column behind the Lakers. If they go 3 and 13, like I'm predicting throughout the next month, if LeBron cannot play, they can find themselves outside number 10, right? And then you're right there with the Thunder and the Pelicans. That's tough. That's tough. We could be looking at a year where you're asking yourself, damn, what happened? LeBron missed the playoffs? So the Lakers definitely need Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, all those guys to step up, Caruso. Need those guys to step up and really make an impact here for them to win. And we'll see tonight against the Pelicans if they're able to make some adjustments and, go against a team who's not great at defending. Maybe they can score. But without LeBron, without AD, can they stop anybody? Is Zion going to go crazy tonight? It's very questionable. But it's a legit chance that the Lakers can find themselves in danger of missing the playoffs. I'm not going to say they're going to miss the playoffs, but they can find themselves in danger of missing the playoffs if they can't get it together. We'll see. We also had another injury in Charlotte. Lamella Ball fractured his wrist, and it is predicted that he'll be out for the season. They say he's getting a second opinion, but I'm not going to read too much into that. If the first doctor said, it's a fracture where you have to be out for the rest of the year, I don't see another doctor going against that, especially if surgery is needed. So it's a shame. LaMelo's been out here balling, killing it, and definitely is the front runner for Rookie of the Year. Now, if he misses the rest of the year with right now, 30-something games left, it's going to be tough for him to win Rookie of the Year, especially with Anthony Edwards starting to really come into his own with the Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves are horrible, right? And LaMelo had the Hornets in the playoffs. Right now, they're in the 6th spot at 21 and 21. And a lot of that's LaMelo, right? Anthony Edwards isn't able to carry his team in that way. Because that's not on him. He's a rookie. You don't expect that from him. It's more on the stars and the coaching, right? I look at Karl-Anthony Towns, like, why are you guys 10-33? But he's definitely going to be the front runner now. And I don't know if we should just overlook games missed, right? Because we had a similar situation with Joel Embiid his rookie year. If you remember, he only played, I want to say, 32 games his rookie year, somewhere around that region, and dominated. He definitely was the best rookie. But Malcolm Brogdon played the whole year and played very well. So he got Rookie of the Year. I can see the same thing happening here, where we remember this year as LaMelo Ball being the best rookie, but the Rookie of the Year going to the guy who played well, but also played the whole season, and Anthony Edwards. So you just hate to see it. Hopefully it's a speedy recovery for him, but I don't think he's going to get Rookie of the Year now. And with the Hornets, I think they will still be good. They won't be as exciting. They won't be the league pass sweetheart that they've been, but I could see them still being a very good team that could make the playoffs, not really scare anybody, but still get in the Eastern Conference. And speaking of teams in the Eastern Conference who want to make an impact, the Milwaukee Bucks made a trade for PJ Tucker. So in the trade, the Bucks got PJ Tucker and Rodon's corrects, if I'm saying that correctly. Houston got DJ Augustine, DJ Wilson, DJ Mustard, DJ Jazzy Jeff. I'm joking about those last two. But along with DJ Augustine and DJ Wilson, they got a first round pick in 2023 and a second round swap in 2021. So this year's draft. So PJ Tucker, of course, is the big pickup for the Bucks. Will he help them? The Bucks right now are hitting their stride. They've won 7 in a row, looking great. PJ Tucker is a perfect partner to go along with Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday. You want somebody who's going to guard multiple positions, right? Can guard perimeter and post. Also, you put them in that corner, you got Giannis driving. If they build that wall and they leave that corner open, you know PJ Tucker can hit that shot. Now, PJ Tucker hasn't been the greatest this year with his three-point shot, but I think in a new situation where he's now on a team that's losing 20 in a row, reinvigorated in the winning culture, he'll make a big impact. And I think he can help the Bucks come postseason time. When you need somebody to irritate a Kyrie Irving, irritate a James Harden, right? Get in the mug of a Ben Simmons, bother a Jimmy Butler, right? Even with the Hawks, they end up playing them, get in the face of a Trae Young. We'll see, right? So that's the first half of our Real Deal headlines. So we're going to take our first music break. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll be right back, so you're not going to miss anything. But if you want to hear the music breaks, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Hopefully you enjoyed that music break that was optimistic by Sounds of Blackness. Today we are hitting you with songs that make you feel good, uplift you. All right. If anybody needs that, you'll get it here today. Now let's get to part 2 of the Real Deal headlines, starting with the Houston Rockets. They finally snapped their losing streak after losing 20 in a row. They finally snapped it by beating the Toronto Raptors. And it made me think, Houston losing 20 in a row, the Brooklyn Nets out here looking unstoppable without Kevin Durant. Do we owe, or more specifically, do I owe James Harden an apology? Right? Because I was pretty hard on him. I didn't like the way he left Houston. And again, if you didn't hear it, I didn't have a problem with him, say, doing the organization wrong, quote unquote. My problem was the way that he just threw his teammates under the bus, left them hanging, and said we weren't good enough. When I believe if he went into this season with his heart into it for the Houston Rockets, with Christian Wood, a reinvigorated John Wall, they had DeMarcus Cousins at the time, and you give this new coach Stephen Silas a chance, maybe this team could be successful, right? Now, since James Harden's left, they did have a spurt there where they looked pretty good. They were playing good, playing great defense. And then it just all fell apart. Injuries, chemistry issues. DeMarcus Cousins was released. It all came falling apart, right? And now it looks like James Harden's a genius. It's like, oh, James Harden knew what was going on, made sure he got out of that situation. Not only did he get out of that situation, but he got traded to the situation that he wanted most in Brooklyn. And now Brooklyn is rolling. They're second in the Eastern Conference and will probably take over first place pretty soon with Embiid being out for the 76ers. But the 76ers are doing a good job of trying to hold on to that top spot while Embiid is out. So again, do we, and more specifically, do I owe James Harden an apology? Hell no, I don't owe James Harden an apology because he still went about it the wrong way. Now, ultimately, he may come out on top. With this year being such a weird year with the MVP voting, he could mess around and win MVP, be the first player traded in season to win MVP. He's in the discussion when you think about it. LeBron being hurt, maybe out for a full month. Embiid missing these games, right? You got Nikola Jokic in there, Damian Lillard in there, James Harden in there. And then you got to start trying to dig for more people. Like I put Jimmy Butler in my top 5 last week. He's missed a bunch of games earlier in the year. So James Harden has a legit shot at winning MVP, especially with Kevin Durant being out. And now we've learned that Kyrie Irving won't be joining the team on their road trip, right? So James Harden has put himself in a position where we're seeing the best of him, right? A lot of people didn't believe he can play in this way. So I do have to give him props on that and say, hey, you're playing in a way that we didn't think you could play. We knew you could get the assists. We knew you could average high assist numbers. But being the efficient passer that you're being, the efficient scorer that you're being, not shooting the ball the most, right? Because even with Kevin Durant out, Kyrie Irving still shoots the ball more than him. He's the point guard, not Kyrie. So we're seeing how great James Harden truly is right now. So props to you. We all knew you were a great player, but now we're seeing a different level of that, right? He's in his prime right now. We're seeing it. And for Houston, they in full rebuilding mode. And maybe he was early on that, right? But again, the way he went about it, I don't think we owe him an apology. But we do have to give credit where it's due and acknowledge how much of a monster he truly is. So my acknowledgement to you, sir. Tip of the cap to you, sir. For the next headline, are the Atlanta Hawks for real? So they won 8 straight. It was snapped last night by the Clippers. Now I watched that game with the Clippers, and the Clippers started off the game well with their starters, right? And got out to like a 10-point lead. And then when their bench came in, things fell apart, and the Hawks just took over and was up by 22 at one point in the second half. And the Clips came storming back, right? And it wasn't your normal people. It wasn't Kawhi and Paul George going crazy. It was their bench going nuts, right? They had Man out there going crazy, doing his thing. He also had my man from Detroit out there going nuts, who signed that big contract with them, but then wasn't playing well, right? So kind of fell out of favor with them. And you were like, okay, and my man, Luke Kennard, I couldn't find his name there. Luke Kennard, he went nuts. I believe it was 8 for 8, 20 points, hit a shot from half court to end the third quarter. And Atlanta wasn't able to stop the onslaught that happened with the Clippers. And the Clippers are still missing Pat Bev and Serge Ibaka in this game. So are the Hawks for real, right? So when you look at the Hawks winning streak, as we pull up their schedule here, so during that winning streak, they beat the Lakers, who, had an injury during that game that we all saw happen to LeBron James. They beat the Thunder, the Rockets, who were in the midst of a 20-game losing streak. The Cavaliers, not good. The Kings, not good. Toronto, not good. The Magic, not good. But they did beat the Miami Heat to start the win streak, right? In the game against the Heat, they held them at 80 points. Like that's a 94 to 80. That's a 1995 score right there. And in that game, you had Duncan Robinson out there with 14 points, but no Jimmy Butler. So during that win streak, your best win is over a Heat team who didn't have their best player. And your other wins are against teams who aren't good, except the Lakers, and LeBron James got hurt. Now, I want to give all the credit in the world to Nate. You usually do see this with new teams. Like a new coach comes in, they've been struggling with the old coach. They get reinvigorated. They win a few games in a row. Atlanta won 8 in a row, right? But are the Hawks for real? I got to say no. When you look at who they beat, the circumstances in which they beat them, comes off kind of fraudulent, right? I got to see them do it against better teams. Now, they showed against the Clippers last night that they can get in the lead and they can play with these teams. But can they win against good teams? And that's something we have to see. And I think more time with Nate. I do like Nate as a coach, Nate McMillan as a coach, but it's not enough for me to say that for real. Now, will they make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference? Pretty sure they'll do that. But will they make any noise? Nah, I don't think so. So for the next headline, we got to get a little serious here. Well, not a little serious, a lot of serious. We got to talk about DeShawn Watson. Now, to give you a full rundown, DeShawn Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, and he is playing for a bad team. He had a great season last year for a horrible team in the Houston Texans, and looks like it's a horrible organization that is being run into the ground pretty much. And he wants out, right? And last week or the week before last was the first allegation of sexual harassment. It went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 6, now to 14 civil lawsuits against him for everything from sexual harassment during the massage where he grabbed a hand and put it on his penis to premature ejaculation, and even one where the lady said, or the woman, accused him of forcing oral sex on her, forcing her to do it. Looks really, really bad, right? In the 14th suit, he was called a serial sexual harasser. This is really bad. It looks really, really bad. The optics are horrible for DeShawn Watson. And what I've noticed with the coverage of this is that the media, or the mainstream media, I'm going to guess I'm part of it too, is a little more just, I guess I want to say, tactical about approaching this one compared to other cases. So a couple years ago with Antonio Brown, when he went through his case or cases, people are more just ready to attack him. Like, we see this guy is horrible. He's a monster. I heard more of that in that case than with DeShawn Watson. Now, DeShawn Watson, before this, had a squeaky clean image. He was the guy who, took care of others, was out here buying homes for families, was known for being a great guy. All his teammates loved him. And then this comes out. And well, a lot of people are going to hear the phrase, where there's smoke, there's always fire. Now, what I've learned in my 31 years is that sometimes when there's smoke, there's somebody back there with a smoke machine and a fan. Now, I'm not saying that all this has been set up. It will be very elaborate to do that. But I also can't put that out of mind. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I can't just throw that out, because when it comes to people who have money like DeShawn Watson, or people who may not be liked. People want them to be something bad so much, right? I've experienced it myself, not to this extreme, of course, and I thank God for that. But I've experienced where people didn't like me for whatever reason and wanted a quote unquote valid reason not to like me. So I could do something simple like open a door for somebody, and you, only reason he opened that door is because we said he wasn't, or he ain't. Now, simply just open the door for somebody. It's a normal thing that everybody does, right? And that person who was doing the whispering or trying to spread this rumor about me wanted me to be an asshole or just a bad person so bad that they wanted to have that smoke there without the fire. And they'd standing there with the smoke machine and the fan, or however it would work without fire, right? Now, in this case, it's so much there with so many people, right? We have the 14 lawsuits, and it's the lawyer saying there's like 10 more cases of it, right? And the lawyer isn't the best guy from what I've been reading, right? So it's not like it's, this squeaky clean lawyer who is only going after the guy because he wants to make sure that these women are protected. He's going after civil lawsuits. So he's trying to get these women money. And that's always gives me a cause to pause when you hear something about sexual assault, rape, anything like that. That's when a woman's choice or a man's choice in some cases gets taken away from them in that way. It's the worst thing that can happen to somebody outside of murder, right? And for me, my first thing that comes to mind is let's get justice. Let's make sure that this person does not do this to anybody else. And if you only are taking away his money, you're not stopping him from doing this to somebody else. So are you truly a victim? Or are you somebody who sees an opportunity? And I'm not accusing this woman of that. I want to make sure I'm making that clear. But that has to be stated. It has to be said that this could be the case where this lawyer saw an opportunity, right? Maybe he learned about the fact that he's out here getting these massages and saw the pattern and was like, okay, let me see how many women he's getting these massages from and what we can do about this. Is there an opportunity here? Because the fact that the Houston Police Department put out a tweet that nobody came to them at all, right? Now, I understand that Deshaun Watson's a star in Houston, and they believe that it's going to be hard for women to come forward because this guy has so much power, so much money. And it's hard for women to come forward, period, in these cases. I definitely understand that. But for not one woman to come forward and at least file a report. Not one. Because not all of them are going to know he's a famous football player, right? I think sometimes we forget, because, I live in this world of sports and I do this, that there's so many people out here who don't care about sports at all. And Deshaun Watson is not super big. He's not a guy when he walks into the room looks like a football player or a professional athlete right away. You're like, okay, he's in shape. Maybe he goes to the gym, but he doesn't look like a guy like Calais Campbell, for example. Calais Campbell walks in the room, you're like, damn, he got to do something. He plays something for somebody, right? Because he's just a massive human being. Deshaun Watson isn't that. So now maybe they knew from the Instagram or whatever, but you would think if there's 22 people, right, or more, they're saying, that have had this experience with Deshaun Watson, one will file a report. One will call the police. The odds of the same person doing something to 22 people and no one calling the police, no one filing a report, that part gives me cause to pause again. And like I said, because of my personal experience with people wanting me to be a bad person and putting that out there because they wanted a valid reason, quote unquote, to not like me, always makes me look at these cases differently. Because if I was someone in DeShawn Watson's shoes, that successful, had that much money, what will stop the person, the type of person who wants to blow that smoke from doing something like this? So again, I don't know Deshaun Watson personally, so he could have been doing all of this, right? And if he was, especially the part where he allegedly forced a woman to give him head, that's rape. So if he is out here doing that, he deserves to be in jail. We shouldn't be discussing how long his suspension will be. Will he miss the year? How much money will come out of his pocket? The first thought, the first thing should be trial, jail. And then afterwards, if you want to hurt him more, then go after his pockets. But that shouldn't be the first thing. Usually, if there's a case like this and you're not able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt guilt, that's when the civil suit comes out. O.J. Simpson, they couldn't prove that, that he killed his wife and the guy that I guess, it was believed that was the lover of his wife. Civil suit came afterwards. I feel like that's how it normally goes. So the fact that we're going civil suit first, then maybe try to go after him later, seems a little weird. But that's just me. And I know what I'm saying isn't politically correct, and I'm not supposed to say this, right? But it wouldn't be the real deal if I just said what I'm quote unquote supposed to say. So I've always been uncomfortable with civil lawsuits and these type of cases. And when I say this, I'm not trying to make light of it at all when I say this, but if I've learned anything from watching years upon years of Law and Order SVU, when something like this happens to you, ladies, gentlemen, please right away go to the police. Don't wash anything off. Make sure you leave everything on so that any evidence can be collected and get justice. Stop this person from doing anything else to somebody else. Because if he's truly out here being a serial predator, and you got at least 14 people that this has happened to, no telling how many others this has happened to. Let's get justice, not let's go after his money, or let's try to ruin his career, which he's a top 5 quarterback. Let's be real. Let's be absolutely real right now. He's a top 5 quarterback. Once this gets settled, right? Let's say they don't go to court. He pays off these women, the lawyer, whoever, and he's done with it. Houston's still going to want him. There's still going to be teams trying to trade for him. He's a top 5 quarterback in his prime. Was he 25, 26 years old? You've seen it. Kareem Hunt was 23 years old when his incident happened where he kicked the girl. Signed next season. Served his 8 games, was right back at it. Because the year prior, he had an amazing year. Now, with a guy in Baltimore, right? I don't know why his name is slipping my mind right now. Ray, can't remember his last name right now. That's crazy. But the running back for Baltimore, who the infamous video, I should say, of him punching his then fiance, knocking her out cold, dragging her out of the elevator. He had come off a bad season and was considered an aging running back. That's why he didn't get signed. So let's not fool ourselves into, or hopefully they're not fooling themselves into saying this is going to ruin Deshaun Watson's career. It's not at all. If he's not going to jail, it's not going to ruin his career, right? With that player from the Seahawks, Chad Wheeler, right? We saw the evidence from his case. We saw the pictures of the poor woman that he beat damn near to death. If he wasn't a good offensive lineman, a premier left tackle, let's say, he would get a suspension and be back on the field if she wasn't trying to put him in jail. That's different. She is going after justice, not his money. So now the NFL doesn't have to worry about suspending him because it's not their job to punish these type of crimes. It's out of their jurisdiction. But we definitely going to see what happens going forward with the Deshaun Watson case. It's going to be very interesting. But for me, I'm not just going to jump and say he's a monster. I know that he is this predator because, again, where there's smoke, a lot of times there's fire, but sometimes there's somebody in the back with a smoke machine blowing it all in our face. So we're going to take our next break. When I come back, we're going to do our second installment of Man, Shut Up or Man, Talk Your Ish. We got some good quotes this week, so we'll be right back. Still getting used to doing this. Welcome back to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Hopefully you enjoyed that music break. Again, we're coming to you with songs to help uplift your spirit today. So hopefully that is doing the job. So now let's get into the second installment of Man, Shut Up or Man, Talk Your Ish. Now, this is where I take quotes from all over the sports world. It could be from sports media members. It could be from athletes, coaches, anybody in the sports world. And if I disagree with the quote, I'm going to give you a man, shut up. If I agree with the quote, I'll give you a man, talk your ish. All right. If I say man, shut up, it's not in a disrespectful way at all. It's all in love. It's just a fancy way of saying I disagree with what you're saying. All right. So let's get to the first quote. Tyreek Hill was asked about restructuring his deal. And he said, when I'm signed, I'm signed. So basically saying, once you give me my money, we sticking to that payment arrangement, right? So I have to give Tyreek Hill a man, talk your ish. Talk your ish, man. It's not the job of the player to help the team out and give back his money. Now, if you want to do so, and you can do it in a way to where you still get your money, cool, perfect, right? But if they're asking you to restructure your deal and give you less money, why am I doing that? I'm not set for life yet, right? Tyreek Hill might not be set for life yet. He might have a certain goal of money that he wants to have in his account, investments he wants to make, whatever the case may be. And he's not there yet. So he's like, I'm not restructuring nothing. Give me my money. That's what he's saying. Give him his money. So man, talk your ish. All right, for the next one. I know you guys have probably saw it on Instagram or wherever. We're in the middle of March Madness, right? And I'm not a big college basketball fan. If you listened to me before, you've rarely heard me talk about college basketball. It's not my ish, right? But March Madness is fun, so you follow a bracket just for, shits and giggles, whatever. So this year we have March Madness back. We didn't have it last year due to the pandemic. So a lot of people are excited about it and it's getting all the attention, right? And for the women's tournament, there were videos posted of their substandard benefits, basically, that they were getting. So their weight room was just like these little dumbbells that you'll see at, your mom's house that she using to work out her arms a little bit, The food didn't look good at all. It was like these little TV dinners that had like Salisbury steak. We've all had them. We've all had those struggle meals back when we was broke, or some of us still having those struggle meals, no judgment, but they shouldn't be having these struggle meals, right? Because the men had state-of-the-art facilities for lifting. Their food was on point. I'm talking about like catered. Their swag bags had everything. Compared to the women's, it just was a joke, right? And Nick Young, Swaggy P, you know, I think he was a 9-year NBA vet, played in the league for a while, right? He had something to say. So let's pull up his quote here if I can get to it on my phone. Oh, here it is. So Nick Young, he is a fool, right? So he commented on the post saying basically, y'all the JV squad. Y'all don't bring in no revenue. So y'all getting what y'all deserve, basically, is what he said. Right? I got it right here exactly. Man, y'all not bringing in the big bucks. Y'all a JV team, and it's cool. So for Nick Young, I got to give you a, man, shut up. Come on, Nick Young. Really? Really, Nick? That's what you're going to say? Now, there's going to be some people saying, well, he's not lying. They don't bring in the big bucks. No, right? Women's basketball does not bring in the revenue that men's basketball does. But when it comes to the college level, are you going to have 15 seed Oral Roberts with substandard conditions compared to an Ohio State who they beat because Ohio State's a bigger school, bringing in more fans? No, all those men are getting treated the same. The women should get the same as the men in college, right? Now, when you get to the pros, it's a bit different because this is your profession. It depends on what you bring in, but how much you make and all those good things. But with college, it's supposed to be pure, quote unquote. It's supposed to be about the love of the game, quote unquote. So when it comes to that, both the men's and women's should get the same benefits for everything. The swag bags, the weights, everything, the food, especially. No way it should be eaten. Why would the women have Lunchables basically compared to the men having full catered out dinners? That's just, the NCAA is showing again why so many people just hate it. Like, it's such a corrupt organization. And one of the reasons I'm not a fan of college sports, because with pros, I know what I'm getting. It's not pure. No, it's a business. But I know that going in, right? You're not trying to fool me. You're not trying to pull the wool over my eyes and say it's about the purity of the game. If the NCAA was honest about it, then maybe I could be a fan. But you're trying to fool us, and the fans try to fool us. Like, come on, man. Come on, man. So Nick Young, that was extremely ignorant. And no, you can't, you just can't say that, man. It wasn't swaggy of you to say that, Nick Young. For the next one, Kyle Kuzma came out in defense of LeBron James and said that LeBron James should have like 8, 9, 10 MVPs by now, right? And this is my thing, right? For Kyle Kuzma, I got to give you a, man, shut up. 8, 9, 10 MVPs, really? Look, there's a difference between being the best player and being the MVP, right? So has LeBron James been the best player in the league for the past 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years? Yes. Yes, he has. But that doesn't mean that he was the MVP every year, right? Because when you look at the years for the MVPs, right? The only year that he didn't get it, that you can make a real argument that he deserved it, was the year Derrick Rose got it, right? Because that was LeBron's first year in Miami. Everybody was mad that he joined the Miami Heat. And he wasn't going to get the vote, even though he was killing that year, right? So now I'm pulling up NBA MVP by year, right? And let's go back to the start of LeBron James's career, which was 02-03, right? Or 03-04, excuse me. So that year was Kevin Garnett. LeBron's a rookie. He wasn't in MVP conversation at that point. 04 and '05 and '05 and '06 with Steve Nash. You can make an argument there that it didn't deserve to go to Nash. Maybe it was Kobe, maybe Tim Duncan, but definitely wasn't LeBron at that point. '07 was Dirk Nowitzki. That's the year that LeBron did carry the Cavs to the finals, but Dirk had an amazing year. Again, nobody was saying LeBron deserved MVP in '07, even though maybe you can make a case there, right? '08, Kobe Bryant. Now, I say Chris Paul deserved the MVP that year, right? Carrying the New Orleans then Hornets to the second seed in the Western Conference, averaging over 22 points, leading the league in assists and steals, and was only one game behind the Lakers in the standings with a team that had much less talent. But again, it wasn't a year that people were talking about LeBron. So 08, 09, and 2009, 2010, 2 years in a row, his last 2 years in Cleveland for his first time around, LeBron James won back-to-back MVPs, right? It's very hard to win 3 times in a row. That was something that was pointed out on Bomani Jones' show. It's only happened a few times. Larry Bird did it 3 times in a row. No, not even Jordan won 3 MVPs in a row, right? It's very hard to do so. People get tired of voting for the same person. And, you have voters fatigue. I don't even think Kareem won 3 in a row, right? So it's only happened a few times. Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, Larry Bird, 3 in a row. So LeBron already had that going against him going into the 2010-2011 season. And he switched over to Miami. The story was how much everybody hated the fact that they had the big old party, the not 5, not 6, not 7. Everybody was hating on them that year. They were the villains. So again, as a journalist, I would have voted for LeBron because we're not supposed to be biased, right? But Derrick Rose was the great story, led the Bulls to the first seed in the Eastern Conference, and also had a chance to make history as the youngest MVP. The narrative went out that year. But LeBron came back the next 2 seasons and won back-to-back again. All right. So in 2014, Kevin Durant got it for OKC, had a crazy year that year. Nobody was really debating against Kevin Durant winning MVP. 2015, Steph Curry had one of the best years we've ever seen, changed the game forever pretty much, MVP. 2016, he won, and it was a unanimous vote for him. 73-9 season, and he was the best player on that team. No argument for LeBron there. Now, 2016-17 is the year that Russell Westbrook won it. That was the first year he averaged a triple-double. I said that Kawhi Leonard should have won it that year for what he did with the Spurs, with his impact on both ends of the floor. Russell Westbrook, got it because he did something that we haven't seen at that point, it was 50-something years. I get it, but there was no argument for LeBron that year at all. 17-18 season, James Harden got it. Again, he averaged damn near a triple-double, carrying the Rockets. No argument there, and he had been second, multiple times at that point. So James Harden was due for one, again, with the narrative. In the last 2 seasons, has been Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's been killing on both ends of the floor with a team that's had the best record in the Eastern Conference the last 2 years. Got to give Giannis his credit there. So again, Kyle Kuzma talking about 8, 9, 10 MVPs. Nah, you can make an argument for maybe 2 more. 07 when Dirk won, and the year Derrick Rose won. So maybe he should have 6. Maybe, right? But he shouldn't get it every year. Jordan didn't get it every year, right? There are some Jordan years that he didn't get it that you can make an argument for somebody else, like the year Karl Malone got it in 96, 97. Some other years there where you can make an argument. The year Barkley got it, but Barkley balled out and led Phoenix to the finals, so it's hard to argue against that. So for me, I got to say to Kyle Kuzma, man, shut up, because you went overboard with your analysis there. All right. So for our next one, Draymond Green. Yes, this one just came to me today. Said that I think I'm the best defender to ever play this game. Ooh, well, let that marinate. Let the sauces get in. Let the seasoning get in on that one. Draymond Green said, I think I'm the best defender to ever play this game. I got to give Draymond Green a man, shut up. The best defender ever to play this game. Now, is Draymond Green a great defender? Yes. There's a reason he's a Defensive Player of the Year award winner. He's the backbone of that Golden State team, especially those championship years. They don't win those chips without him, right? Especially the first one. But to say you're the greatest defender to ever play this game, can't say that, right? Now, in his prime, he can guard 1 through 4 and some 5s, right? In today's NBA. But when you talk about the greatest defenders of all time, you got to look at Scottie Pippen, right? He was a menace on the perimeter and had the size to defend up to the 4. And in today's NBA, he would be a guard up to the 5. Hakeem Olajuwon. Whenever someone talks about the greatest defenders of all time, I mention Kevin Garnett, right? Kevin Garnett at his size could guard pretty much 1 through 5 in that era and today's era, right? Dennis Rodman was another one that was just a menace on defense. Dwight Howard, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Ben Wallace, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Kawhi Leonard, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. So Draymond Green, when it's all said and done, maybe a top 10 all-time defender, right? But to say he's the greatest defender of all time, and he may not be the best of his generation, right? Because I mentioned Kawhi Leonard. Someone that's coming into their own right now as a great defender is Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, with his size, can defend 1 through 5 and is more athletic than Draymond. So with him being a menace on defense, he literally just cancels people out in the game, right? When they had that game against Utah some weeks back and they put him on Donovan Mitchell, who wasn't heard from. That's a hard person to shut down. He's given problems to a lot of people. And Draymond, like I said, very, very good, great defender. But can he do it in that way? Because his size and athleticism isn't on par with a KG, a Ben Simmons. So I can't roll with you on that one, Draymond. So now let's move on to Stephen A. Smith. It was announced earlier this week or last week that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua came to an agreement on them having not only 1 bout, but 2 bouts for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world in boxing. And the discussion on First Take was, is this the biggest fight that can be made in combat sports? So that's including MMA, UFC, all that. And Stephen A. Smith said, no, the biggest fight that could be made would be Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. So with that, I have to give Stephen A. man, shut up. Yes, I have to give a man, shut up. Now, if you listen to this podcast, I've been begging Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford to stop being petty and make this fight happen. It is a fight that we want to see, but it's definitely not the biggest fight in combat sports. The undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Now, I get that a lot of people who are international boxing fans are going to look at Stephen A. and say, oh, he's only saying that because Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. are Americans. And Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, both, over the pond. But the reason that Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury is the biggest fight is not only the fact that it's the heavyweight championship of the world, but they're going to sell out a soccer stadium that can seat 80,000. It's going to be sold out for this fight, right? If it's on pay-per-view, I'm buying, you buying, your mama buying the fight. Everybody's going to watch this fight because it's going to be such a event. With Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, for pure boxing fans who love to see them settle who's the best in the welterweight division. But the best in the welterweight division is never going to be as big as the undisputed heavyweight champion. We haven't had an undisputed heavyweight champion, since Lennox Lewis. Come on, man. So, Stephen A., I have to disagree with you on that one and say that, nah, the biggest fight is Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, and I'm super hyped for it. Super hyped for it. And we'll get into more boxing talk after the break. But before we get to the break, I got one more quote to go over. Max Kellerman, you said, right now, LeBron is the MVP of the league at this moment, but Damian Lillard is the one that can take the crown away from him. I have to give Max Kellerman a man. Talk your ish. You are right. Damian Lillard definitely should be right there for MVP. With LeBron getting hurt, it opens the door for James Harden, like I said earlier, Damian Lillard, Nikola Jokic. All these guys are going to be in the competition, right? It's open right now. We've never had a season like this, not one that I can remember where MVP was just up for grabs. The year Russell Westbrook won it was a year where you could have voted for him, James Harden, or Kawhi Leonard. But it was those three guys. With this one, you can make a case for Jimmy Butler. You can make a case for Giannis, even with Milwaukee surging the way they're surging right now, and he's performing the way he's performing. He's back in the conversation. So it's wide open right now. So I do agree with Max on that one. So if you enjoyed this second installment of Man Shut Up or Man Talk Your Ish, please let me know. You know, you guys determine whether or not I keep these segments. So I appreciate the feedback. We're going to go ahead and take our next music break and be right back. Welcome back to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Hopefully you enjoyed that music break and you're getting that uplifting feeling that I want you to get on today's episode. Now let's get into some boxing talk. All right. So this past weekend was a big weekend in boxing. We had 2 championship bouts. We had 1 championship change hands in the cruiserweight division. We also had a big up-and-comer make a big splash in the welterweight division. So let's start with the champion who kept his title, Arthur Beterbiev, the best light heavyweight out right now, 175-pound division. And he looked very impressive. And he went up against a very, very tough individual in Dennis, who was there to fight. He definitely was not there to back down. With someone like Beterbiev and his reputation, you would think that a lot of people get beat before they're even in the ring with Beterbiev because he has a record of knocking everybody out. And Dennis was there. He was tough. He hit him with some good left hands, but Beterbiev just kept coming forward behind the guard, and just bop, 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 bop. And every punch has mean intentions. And after a layoff, he looked really good. And it could set up a unification bout between him and Joe Smith Jr. Now, Joe Smith Jr. is pretty much a very similar fighter to Beterbiev. They're both built very stout, powerful punchers who can come forward and take punishment while also dishing it out and can box when need to. And with Joe Smith Jr., he's defending his title, I believe, in a couple of weeks. So if he wins, it'll set up a unification bout for later in this year, which would be big for ESPN Plus. But Arthur Beterbiev, if you're not familiar with him, go look him up. Go look up his highlights. He's a monster. So you'll get ready for the fight later this year with Joe Smith Jr., right? Another big-time fight we had where a title changed hands was Lawrence Okolie, right? Cruiserweight. He's an Olympian from Britain who is 6'5", in a cruiserweight division. Cruiserweight is 200 pounds or less. And he is at that height, has such an advantage with his reach. And in his previous fights before this one, he had trouble fighting on the inside. He's so long, so lanky that when fighters would get on the inside, he would just hold. And it would be ugly fights. Some of his fights I've seen have been some of the most boring fights I've watched. And I wasn't really impressed with him, even though promotions were trying to push him because he's a former Olympian and he's supposed to be so skilled. I didn't really see it going into this fight, right? But in this bout, man, he just straight demolished demolished. His jab was on point and it was hard. It wasn't just a pawing jab. It was pow, pow. And then the straight right hand would come and he dominated. His opponent was somebody who was game, 6 foot, fought very low, made himself hard to hit. And Okolie adjusted, went to the body, went upstairs with the jabs and the straights. For me, what I want to see more of from him is a variety of punches. So more hooks, more uppercuts. When he goes to the body, a hook to the body, an uppercut to the body. Just more variety in his game, right? At 6'5", he has plans of eventually moving up to heavyweight. And his length won't be special at heavyweight, right? When you look at Anthony Joshua, 6'6", Tyson Fury, 6'9", Deontay Wilder, 6'6". There's other heavyweights that are that height or bigger, right? And their size is so much bigger. So if he moves up to heavyweight, and let's say he gets to 220, 230, he's going to need to fight on the inside. Have those short right hands, those straight hooks to the body, just digging hooks to the body. He's going to need that in his game. But right now, he's trying to unify the cruiserweight division. And with Alexander Usyk being out of the division now, I think that's an obtainable goal to unify the cruiserweight division, or become undisputed, at cruiserweight. I was very impressed with what he did, but I still need to see more. But he is very young in the game and can develop those skills. Now, the biggest fight of the weekend didn't have a title on the line, but it was Virgil Ortiz Jr. versus Maurice Hooker, and the fight lived up to the billing, right? Virgil Ortiz is very young. He'll turn 23 here in a couple of days, and he's been knocking out everybody. And he didn't have that signature name on his resume yet, right? He was just cruising through these welterweights, and going through them. And Maurice Hooker fought most of his career at 140, moved up to 147, former champion at 140. His only loss coming into this one was an epic fight in which he went down. So this is a very good opponent, very game opponent. And Virgil Ortiz walked through him, right? And don't get me wrong, Hooker was definitely hitting with some shots. You saw the damage on Ortiz's face afterwards, but he was just a machine coming forward, jab, straight right hand, body shots, and everything was mean. Like his jab would back Hooker up, right? So he definitely has crazy power and is able to take a shot. Hooker is somebody who's known for his power, his punching power at 140. Now at 147, a little different, right? Maurice Hooker isn't a true welterweight. And after the fight, when Hooker went down in the 7th round with a broken hand, and also just from the accumulation of punishment, Ortiz was asked about who does he want next. Does he want Errol Spence? Does he want Terrence Crawford? And I thought the interviewer, I know what you're doing. They're both there at the venue. It's in Texas. They're both there. You have to ask, right? But I don't think Ortiz is on that level yet. He doesn't have a signature true welterweight on his resume yet, right? So before we skip the line and get him to Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr., how about beating one of the former champions or contenders? Then that gets you Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. So here are the 5 people I think Virgil Ortiz Jr. should fight next, or should be in contention to be the next guy before he gets that championship bout. Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia fought a good fight against Errol Spence Jr. If he can get past Danny Garcia, then maybe he'll deserve that fight, especially if he can stop Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia has never been stopped in his career. Very good chin, can take punishment, lots of heart. If Virgil Ortiz can stop Danny Garcia, you can't ignore him. Sean Porter. That'd be a very interesting fight because both fighters go forward. That's all they know is forward, foot on the gas, 100%. Who's going to back down? Who's going to be the one to have to back up in this one? Sean Porter doesn't have the power of Ortiz, but the way he fights is going to make it hard for Ortiz. Can he get past that type of challenge? Another one is Yordenis Ugas. Very good boxer, someone who fought Sean Porter to a very close fight that some people thought Ugas won. That's somebody who would give Ortiz a very good challenge because of his boxing skill. It wouldn't be scared. It's not going to back down, can take a punch. If Ortiz can get past him, then he'll deserve a championship shot. Keith Thurman, if Keith Thurman's still fighting, I don't know. He hasn't fought since he fought Manny Pacquiao damn near 2 years ago now. But if he's still active, Keith Thurman will be a great challenge. Great boxer. His name is one time for a reason. Still has power. In his prime, he's only, 31, 32 years old. So that would be a very good challenge for Ortiz. If he can get past that, and that's a big money fight as well, then you deserve an Errol Spence or a Terrence Crawford. And last but not least, Jesse Vargas. Jesse Vargas is someone who's known now as a gatekeeper type fighter. If you can get past a Jesse Vargas. Now with Jesse, if you beat Jesse Vargas, you probably still have to be another contender before you get to Bud or Errol Spence. But those 5 guys would be in my talks. If I'm Ortiz's team, they will be the guys who would be in my conversation. Like, hey, we need to go ahead and talk to one of these 5, get this fight popping so that we can maybe fight Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford later this year, at the end of this year, or beginning of next year. But Virgil Ortiz is the truth. He's for real. Now, he does take a lot of punishment coming in like that. Can he take that type of punishment against a Danny Garcia, against a Sean Porter? If he gets to eventually a Bud Crawford, Errol Spence, if he's coming in like that, taking that punishment, Hooker had him marked up. Imagine what Errol Spence would do, Bud Crawford would do. So I do believe in Virgil Ortiz going forward as a true contender, but he's not ready for Bud Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. just yet. Let's get him one of those 5 guys I mentioned. He's 17-0, 17 KOs. Looks amazing. If you can KO a Danny Garcia, a Sean Porter, guys who are known for being tough, known for having good chance, known for not being guys to get stopped easily, then we have something. Last but not least here in the boxing world, unfortunately, Gervonta Davis. He was charged with, I believe, 12 counts of just different charges from a hit and run that he was involved in back in November. And such a young, talented dude, man. Only 26 years old. 14 counts on a hit and run crash from back in November. I believe it was after his fight against Leo Santa Cruz. And for me, I understand he's young, right? 26 years old. You haven't lived that much yet, right? I'm a lot wiser now at 31 than I was at 26. And I'm sure, hopefully, I'm a lot wiser at 36 than I am at 31. But for me, the excuse of youth, I don't think should be used anymore, because there's so many examples of what not to do. We just saw Errol Spence Jr. get into this big accident where he damn near lost his life. And it hasn't been reported, but I believe he was under the influence of alcohol when Errol Spence Jr. got in that crash. And luckily he came out, as unscathed as possible from that incident, from that accident. Gervonta Davis goes out and does the same thing, but worse, he injures somebody else and runs from the scene and was driving dirty. License was suspended. Car probably wasn't registered. All this stuff. Just take care of your shit, or have somebody else take care of it. Like, understand you're busy, but it's not that hard to have somebody else take care of your stuff. Depending on which state you're in, you can get your license renewed online. Like, unless it was suspended due to a previous incident that we don't know about, or that I'm not aware of, where you couldn't get it renewed. But I just hope that, he doesn't get jail time, that he learns his lesson from this, and that his life isn't ruined, right? Because if you get the wrong judge on something like this, they can try to throw the max at you, which I think the max for these charges might be 7 years. That happens, box career is done. life is changed forever. So hopefully I shouldn't say gets off easy, but hopefully he gets community service, has to, be on house arrest or whatever the case is, and is able to continue his life and learn from this. I'm just glad no one was seriously hurt to the point of death or anything like that. But Javonte, man, if you're listening, if somebody who knows Javonte is listening, man, just let them know, man, we praying for you and do better. Just do better, man. All right. So we're going to take our last music break. And when we come back, we're going to do our Forgotten Player in the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. I knew you enjoyed that last music break. Stevie Wonder right there, classic joint. So now this is normally where I do Forgotten Player, where we pay homage to a player who may have been good but not great, great but not recognized, or a player that you might have just forgotten about who I want to remind you of. But today, we're just going to remember a player who is great and recognized, and say rest in peace to the great Elgin Baylor, who played 14 years in the NBA, along with being a executive for the LA Clippers for 20 years. He is definitely a legend as far as his impact on the game. And just to show you how cold he was, let's go over some of his stats here. So for Elgin, he was he drafted here? Yeah, he was the first overall pick in the 1956 NBA draft by the then Minneapolis Lakers, which eventually moved to LA during his career. And he came in right away balling. 25 points a game, shooting 77% from the free throw line, 40% from the field, giving you 15 rebounds. The man was averaging 25 and 15 as a rookie, along with 4 assists. That's just dumb. Just stupid. Just craziness. As a rookie, 25 and 15. The next year gave you 26 or 29.6 and 16.4 rebounds per game. You're like, can it get any better than that? The next year, they moved to LA. He gives you 34.8 points per game while also averaging 19.8 rebounds. So basically 35 and 20. 35 points and 20 rebounds a game from the small forward position. Like, that's just craziness. After that, can it get any better? Yeah. The next season, his 4th year in the league, 38.3 points per game while giving you 18.6 rebounds. Like, it's like, okay, he's got to fall off eventually. Yeah, he fell off. The next year gave you 34 points, 14 rebounds. Like, the production during his career is just absolutely nuts. He finished his career averaging 27.4 points per game and 13.5 rebounds. He's 3rd overall in points per game for his career at 27.4 behind Wilt and Michael Jordan. It's sad that he came so early, right? Now, of course, if he'd have played later, his rebound numbers probably wouldn't have been as crazy, but obviously this dude was ahead of his time by years, right? The fact that he played until he was 37, during that time when careers were much shorter, shows you how great he was and how different he was compared to everybody else. So I just want to see rest in peace to Elgin Baylor. My condolences go out to his family and friends. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode, man. I had a good time doing it. I appreciate your support. Thank you for listening, subscribing, supporting. I definitely appreciate it. And make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at The Real Deal WDA. All right. Make sure you share the podcast with your friends, your family, the people you don't like, everybody. All right. I would appreciate it. And until next time, go real or go home.